Okay, ladies and gentlemen, please have a seat. All right, we're about to begin. The Anne Arundel County Liquor Board hearing for August 8th, 2023 is now in session. The board now has all meetings transcribed, which serve as minutes of the hearing. The board keeps such minutes stored electronically and are available to review simply by calling the board for an appointment. I now make a motion that the transcripts for the previous board hearing held on June 27th, 2023 be accepted as the board minutes for that date, and I ask for a second.
I second the motion.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner Duffy. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. Mr. Praley, sir.
All right, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good evening, everybody. My name is Jimmy Praley. I serve as counsel to the board. A couple things to discuss tonight. The first is the commissioners before you are all part-time public servants. They all have other outside interests. When they know they have a conflict of interest or the appearance of a conflict of interest, they'll recuse themselves from any given case. However, due to the number of cases we have and the potential for individuals to testify in support or in opposition to any prospective license, the commissioners could not possibly know who would appear. And as such, if you believe that a commissioner or the commissioners, as the case may be, has a conflict of interest or the appearance of a conflict, you have to make that known to us when your case is called. We'll discuss it and we'll move forward with a ruling on whether a commissioner or commissioners need to recuse themselves. Otherwise, we'll proceed under the supposition that no commissioners have a conflict and there is no appearance of conflict. Second, the rules of this board allow for the chair, allow the chair for the purposes of administrative and judicial economy to have counsel rule on admissibility of evidence and objection if there are any objections made. This board handles many cases at every given hearing, so this allows us to expedite the hearing. So if an objection is made in your case, rather than the chair turning to me advising the chair, I'll simply make a ruling and that will be the ruling of the board. Finally, if you are here tonight on a change of officer, a transfer, or a new license, if your request is granted, that is going to be subject to you meeting all legal requirements. There may be certain documents that the board needs to supplement your application before we can issue the license, the transfer, or the change of officer. And those can be addressed with the administration after the hearing. So with that, I will turn it over to our sub tonight, Deputy Chief Inspector Sean Ralston. You can please call the first case.
Thank you, Mr. Praley. Our first case is Pfeiffer's Deli and Craft Beer House, Pfeiffer's Seafood, Inc. Catherine.
Will you all waive the reading? No, come on up. I'm just asking if you'll waive the reading. Oh, yes. We got a couple cases here, and I want Mr. Ralston's voice to remain fresh, so if that's all right. Absolutely. All right, thank you.
Thank you. Anyone wishing to testify for or against, please come forward, remain standing, and raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear and affirm under the penalty of perjury that the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? Yes, I do. You may be seated. If you could please state your name and address for the record. We'll start on your right over here.
Detective Middleton, Anne Arundel County Police Department.
Joseph Michael Smith, 913 Hillcrest Way, Glen Burnie, Maryland, 21060.
Thank you. Morgan McDaniels, 817 220th Street, Pasadena.
Kathleen Pfeiffer, 8181 Pasadena, Maryland.
Thank you, Mr. Praley.
All right, thank you. Detective, if you could please provide us with a statement of facts for this case.
Hey, good evening. Once again, this is Detective Middleton, Anne Arundel County Police Department. This was on March 11th of this year, 2023, at approximately 1:25 in the afternoon. Sergeant White, Detective Mountcastle, and I were working Operation SAVE, conducting alcohol sales compliance checks of retail businesses. We directed a confidential source, 20 years of age, subject to enter Pfeiffer's Liquors, located here in Anne Arundel County at 8894 Fort Smallwood Road, Suite 4 in Pasadena. We observed the confidential source enter the business. The CS went to the store, picked out an 18-pack of Bud Light beer, took it to the front counter. CS was given official Anne Arundel County funds and was able to purchase the Bud Light beer from the clerk. The clerk did not ask the CS for identification. The CS exited the business, immediately turned over the alcoholic beverages to us. I know through my training, knowledge, and experience that Bud Light beer is an alcoholic beverage. Detective Mountcastle and I entered the store, identified ourselves as police officers, and identified the clerk as Miss Morgan Taylor McDaniel. Daniel advised that she had been working at the store for 1 week. McDaniel advised that she had not had any alcohol awareness training. The manager identified on the scene was Mr. Joseph Michael Smith. A photograph was taken of McDaniel, the Anne Arundel County liquor license that was properly displayed inside the store. Photograph was taken of the Bud Light beer and was subsequently destroyed. McDaniel was very cooperative in the store, and also the manager. The store was not busy. A copy of this report then was forwarded to the Anne Arundel County Liquor Board. And that would be my statement of facts.
All right, thank you, Detective. Mr. Smith, I'm assuming that you're going to be speaking on behalf of Pfeiffer's, on behalf of the licensed establishment. This is your opportunity to ask the detective any questions just based on the statement of facts. You're going to have the opportunity to present your case in mitigation at a later point in this hearing. But if you have any questions, now is the appropriate time to ask. Okay, great. Mr. Chairman, any questions?
I'd just like to clarify a few things. Ms. McDaniels, how long have you been working, or were you working up until the date of this incident?
That was my first week working there. It was maybe my second shift by myself.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I should have clarified. These are just going to be questions for the detective now. But if you can continue on.
Well, it was in the detective's statement that she had only been there a short period and that they weren't very busy that evening, and I think I was just trying to get to that, so my apologies.
No, not a problem.
Detective, when you went in, you spoke to Ms. McDaniels, and in doing so, you noticed that at that particular time, they were not busy?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, that's all the questions right now. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Commissioner Duffy, do you have any questions of Detective Middleton?
No question.
Commissioner Snoops, any questions?
No questions.
All right, well, Mr. Smith, we'll turn it over to you now to present your case. You can, if you have any evidence that you want to introduce, now will be the time, but we'll turn it over to you. After you've had the opportunity to present, we're going to see if any of the commissioners have any questions for you, okay?
No problem.
Oh, yes, sir. Thank you. I don't dispute anything he says. Everything he says is 100% accurate. It wasn't busy. She was new. But as far as not busy goes, it wasn't busy. We weren't having customers. I think she might have been a little overwhelmed. She was trying to make sure she did all the other things like stocking and all. And that's where I think it just slipped her, because she's actually became one of our best employees we've ever had in our liquor store. Immediately, we called tips, had her certified, so she is trained now. We now have a new POS system that now has a new scanning system attached to it. We're actually looking, I talked to the people at the liquor board, and they told me that we can buy one that will make it so that the purchase is not allowed unless a card is scanned. So we're actually looking into that. But everything he said was accurate. It was human error. She was new, and she made a mistake, and I don't want to fault her for that. It's a human error, but she is a really good employee, and everything he said is right. We don't have the intention of serving underage kids by any means. We card everyone, and she made the lapse of judgment to not card that person. That was it. I'm not trying to make excuses. I mean, it's wrong. You shouldn't do it, but it happened.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Smith. Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Smith, who was the supervisor on that evening with Ms. McDaniels?
Myself and Jade Beaupalant.
I'm sorry, yourself and who?
Myself, Jade Beaupalant. She's our general manager.
Okay.
We were both there. We were busy with the restaurant and all, and we, we're making swings over, and we just happened, it was slower over there, so we weren't putting as much time over there. So I'll take fault for that.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
That's all the questions.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Commissioner Duffy, any questions?
Yes, Mr. Smith, based upon the fact that this is her first time and she admitted to the officer that she wasn't, had not received alcohol awareness training, have you established a training to be conducted for new employees?
For in-house?
Yes.
So we do that. She wasn't tip trained, but she immediately was tip trained afterwards. We now are on a better procedure of getting new hires in and setting up the class. We don't always get it exactly when they hire because a lot of places won't do a class for one person. So we wait till we get 4 or 5 new hires, and then we're doing, like, we just did a class for, I think, 11 of our employees that were all basically within a month. So we are trying to be better about that, but the main thing I think is that we're going to look into the scanner so that you can't even make a transaction without accepting it.
Well, I applaud you because of the POS.
Right.
That a system that you have.
Because we have a regular scanner right now, that just flashes it up, but it doesn't prevent the sale. We want to make it so it prevents the sale. You won't even be able to make, so if this gentleman or the gentleman they sent in would have came in, even if she was willing, it wouldn't allow it. So that's what we're looking into now, because we figure that's the only way to stop human error.
But my question was again, do you now have a time limit as to where you will conduct the training, whether it be tip training, alcohol awareness training, or whichever, within a 30-day, 60 days period of time to ensure that all employees are trained, tip certified, or alcohol awareness?
All of them are tip certified as of this moment. Once again, if I have enough employees, I will hold the class. If not, I will have to find somewhere else to send the class because this is, I guess, I don't have an answer for that. I'm sorry.
Okay.
I don't have a proper answer for it.
Oh, all right. Thank you very much.
Commissioner Snoops? Oh, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. Mr. Smith, I have a follow-up question in reference to your comments. We understand that sometimes it's difficult when you only have one employee and you're trying to set up the tips, but there are ways and means of doing that. Are you aware of the fact that you have a restriction on that liquor license?
As far as?
Well, I'll read it to you. June 27th, 2022, so this previous year and a half ago, it says all employees must be alcohol awareness certified within 30 days of hire.
I did not know that.
So it's on your license,
Okay.
which is on your wall, as well as, of course, you should be aware it's part of the license restrictions. What was the date that Mrs. McDaniels took her class?
This was issued on July 3rd, but
Okay.
I don't know if that's the day that the class was actually held.
No,
Because
it isn't, but
it was quite a difference between. But as soon as we got the class done, I took all the paperwork down. Katie Wargo, I guess you guys know who that is. She did the class. She sent an email to Jim Ford, I believe is his name. And then we got the paperwork and we went down and showed them who we were putting on management training and who was certified, to show that everybody in the building was then recertified if they hadn't been or certified for the first time.
thank you. Yeah, I'm just trying to make sure you understand that where Commissioner Duffy, I believe, was going, as well as where I'm going, is you're mandated to get that training for all new employees within 30 days. And if you weren't aware of it,
Now
you definitely should have been.
I apologize.
And the licensees should have been. So enough said with that, but I think that's an important issue that, who knows? She was only there a week. If she'd have been there 5 weeks and this occurred, she'd have been outside of that area, that time, that 30 days. There's a very good chance you'd have another violation for failure to obey the restrictions. So in order to avoid that,
Absolutely.
and remember that restriction's still on the license, so it's going to be there until it's removed. Okay, that's all the questions that I have right now.
Any additional
Thank you for
questions
that
from
information.
any of the commissioners?
No.
Follow-up?
No.
Okay. Mr. Smith, anything you'd like to add?
No, sir.
Okay. All right, with that, we'll turn it over to the chairman. Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Fraley. This establishment has been around for about 20 years, I believe. Is that correct, Ms. Pfeiffer? Yeah. So you've been around for a while. And just in the most recent 5-year period, meaning the last 5 years, I'm not even going beyond that, and I could, I do want to read something, and that is, this is part of your file, which is available to you if you want to look at it. It seems back in 2018, which was within that 5-year period, April 29th, there was a alcohol non-compliance test given, and you failed. And you were fortunate because you received just a reprimand, which is usually, I think it's unusual for sale to a minor and get a reprimand. So, but for whatever reason, the board at that time deemed it okay, and they did it. But then again, less than a year later, you had another one. Again, this is where our Anne Arundel County Police Department came in, and another sale was made to a minor within a year. That was February 17th of 2019. You were found guilty and you were fined $250. Then again, within, I think, a 2-year period, March 18th, 2021, Anne Arundel County Police Department came in and they performed another compliance check. You failed that. At that time, you came in front of the board and the board found you guilty, fined you $1,500. So you can see the increase. But less than 2 months after that one, May 24th of 2021, Anne Arundel County went back in again. And this is not unusual for them to do this if they have a place that might appear to be habitually selling to minors. I hope you understand that. We want to keep you in check. We want to help make sure you understand you can't sell to minors. At that particular time, the fine was $3,000. And I'm bringing this to light, and these are not the only violations, but these are the violations for sale to minors. So you've had 4 previous within the last 5 years. That is, in my opinion, a horrendous record. And I can't remember, and I've been around quite a while, of too many establishments that have equaled that. What I'd like to do is, I'm going to put a motion on the floor. And I hope you understand the reason for this, because of what I just said and because of the fact, and I understand things may change in the near future, and I really hope they do. I'm all in favor of that happening, especially if along with that comes the management that is going to be there and be aware of the fact that you don't want to reappear in front of this board anytime soon. I think that would be in no way, shape, or form a benefit. I'd like to make a motion that your license be suspended for a 3-day period. And what I'm going to do is I'm also going to add a $1,000 fine for each count. You have 2 counts. So my motion is that you pay a total of $2,000 plus the administration fees that go along with that. That's usually amounts to, a couple $100 or so. And I'm also, as part of that motion, putting you down for a 3-day suspension to start, not this weekend, I'm not going to do that to you, but the following weekend to start at 12:01 a.m. on a Friday. And that will go for 3 days. So not this weekend coming up, but the following weekend, and I'll get dates here in a second, you'll have to close your establishment down. And it'll be for 3 days. That's from 12:01 a.m. Friday morning, all day Friday, all day Saturday, all day Sunday, and then you can reopen for business Monday. And I know that's might sound harsh, but if we levied the maximum fines monetarily, I think it would even be harsher, because I know that's off the top, that's net profit. So, yeah, we are taking a monetary fine as well as a 3-day suspension. But I think the most important point is that you're aware of it. Thank you.
And that's in the form of
And
a
that's,
motion, Mr.
and that is in the form of a motion, and I'm looking for a second.
I second the motion.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Duffy. We have a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. So you understand, and if you need to, I can answer questions, or the administration can answer your questions.
I do have a question. Does that mean we have to close the liquor store, or we have to close the liquor store and the restaurant?
Both are under the same
Okay,
license, and
that's all I wanted to
unfortunately.
make sure. I didn't want to
Yeah, no,
give
no,
any-
no,
okay.
and it's a good question. They're both under the same license, and they're in the same building, so it's both.
Okay.
Okay? And that'd give you some time to prepare your customers.
And if you have any questions, be sure to reach out to the administration to
Can I ask
discuss the process.
One more question.
Sure.
I understand what the word closed means, but does closed mean, could I go in there while it's closed and clean up, restock, move
Yeah.
things? As long as we're not selling nothing, could I go in and do
Right.
that? Oh, we can? Okay.
No customers.
Yeah, no customers. I get it. There will be no customers. I mean, if I'm going to be closed for 3 days, I might as well get some work done.
Okay, that's it. We're adjourned. By the way, from many of us who knew Richard, our condolences. So have a good evening.
Thank you.
Thank you, officer. You are excused. Thank you very much. Thank you for your service. Next case.
Next case is Squisito Riva. 4 features.
Reading.
Thank you, Mr. Lyman.
Anyone wishing to testify for or against, please come forward, remain standing, and raise your right hand. Remain standing, raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear to and affirm under the penalty of perjury that the testimony you are about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, yes.
You may be seated. Starting on your right, if you could please state your name and address for the record.
Stephen Delorier, 8021 Elton Street, Glen Burnie, Maryland, 21060.
Gennaro Di Maio, 211 Norwood Road, Annapolis, Maryland, 21401.
And good evening, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners. My name is Brian Lyman, Lyman, on behalf of the applicants.
Thank you. Mr. Fraley?
All right, thank you. Mr. Lyman, floor is yours. You can present your case by way of proper testimony, combination of both. We'll turn it over to you.
Thank you, Mr. Praley. Again, Commissioners, Mr. Chairman, thank you for hearing this as a change of officer application. The 2 applicants before you, one of them is already licensed by the board. That's Mr. Gennaro Di Maio. He holds a Class H license at Meatballs, which is another Squisito franchise on Porterfield Road in Glen Burnie. He's well aware of the board's rules and regulations. I don't believe that there have been any violations of that establishment while it's been under his control as licensee. You have also the qualifying applicant, Mr. Delarius. He's seated to my left. Both of them are minority interest holders, but Mr. Di Maio has been made the president, secretary, and treasurer of the corporation. There will be no changes to the operation of the Squisito establishment that we're talking about. It's located on Riva Road. It's been open for over 20 years, Mr. Di Maio says. And the applicants before you are certainly fit and proper. I believe that the paperwork before the board is complete and correct, and that there have been no changes needed since it was submitted in late May. I'm certainly available to try to answer any questions for the board, but this is a change of officer to remove Michelle Di Maio as the licensee and officer and install her husband, Gennaro, and Stephen Delorius, or Deloriers, as the responsible parties and licensees.
Thank you, Mr. Lyman. Mr. Chairman, any questions?
Just one that comes to mind. You have outdoor service on Riva Road, Squisitos, correct?
Yes.
Have you gotten your outdoor service letter of approve for this year? Do you know?
I do not know that. I was not privy to that process if it's happened. I believe they do serve outdoors with a barrier around the patio. If it has not been approved, then that is certainly an oversight, and we would need to rectify that, obviously.
Okay, I only mentioned that because I happened to drive down Riva Road and I saw people sitting out there. I'm in that vicinity a lot, and I was just curious whether or not. So I think it would behoove you to contact janitor Michelle or any of the administration just to make sure you have your outdoor service.
Yep.
It's an annual process. I believe that it happens every year.
Oh, good.
Thank you, Mr.
Mr.
Aronson.
Aronson said you are, so that's great. Glad to hear it. That's all the questions that I have, Mr. Fairley.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Commissioner Duffy, any questions?
No question.
Commissioner Snoops?
No questions.
Mr. Lyman, anything you want to add?
Nothing further. My applicants, should they become licensees, hope to not appear before the board until the next change of office, as was duly noted during the presentation previously.
Just like to come here every once in a while.
Mr. Chairman.
Okay, with that being said, I'd like to make a motion that we go ahead and accept the change of officers as requested. We do want to make sure that any and all the paperwork, and I understand you have maybe 5 documents that haven't been turned in or haven't been completed yet. So I'm going to make a motion that we approve it, but you won't be able to pick up that license until all the required documents are completed.
Very good. We will interface with the board staff and supply all the necessary required documents, along with the original license to be handed back over.
Okay, so that was a motion. I'm looking for a second.
I second the motion.
Thank you, Ms. Snoops. We have a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Congratulations. That's taken
Thank you
care
very
of.
much.
Have a good day.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Commissioners.
You're welcome.
Thank you also, Mr. Aronson.
Next case is Bayside Inn.
Mr. Hurdle, will you waive reading? Great, thank you.
Anyone wishing to testify for and against, please come forward, remain standing, and please raise your right hand. Remain standing. Do you solemnly swear and affirm under the penalty of perjury that the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? You may be seated. Please state your name and address for the record.
Jessica Dosman Dillon, 1246 Mayo Road, Edgewater, 21037.
Mr. Presley?
Yeah, Mr. Hurdle, go ahead.
Thank you. If I may proffer, I will have some brief testimony as well.
Sure, go right ahead.
To my left is Ms. Bowen, who was just introduced. She has 15 years of experience in the restaurant industry. She does and has in the past had tip certification. She's uncertain if hers is active today, but she will get it updated. We are aware that this location has a similar restriction to the previous, I guess the first hearing this afternoon or evening, whereas theirs was 30 days, ours is 90, although having spoken to the prospective licensee, she's targeting a 45-day window as like the absolute outside kind of zone for this. They're trying to change the bar a little bit to a more sports bar kind of atmosphere. It is a seafood house, more or less. Typically, they're open from about 11 a.m. until 12 p.m. Well, I guess midnight would be more accurate. And on Saturdays and Friday nights, they're open till 2 a.m. They have been operating for about 3 or 4 weeks. They took over under a management agreement. I believe that Mr. Carlo passed recently, is my understanding. This transaction, all the paperwork, I understand, was signed some time ago. I believe that there's going to have to be the estate signing. I anticipate Mr. Aronson and Ms. Hagner will be helping me with whatever that complicated estate process will be in this. They have, in the last few weeks since they've been operating, spoken to some members of the community who have been very enthusiastic about their operations. The local school, which I apologize, I'm not from the area, is, I believe, very close by and has asked if they could help out with certain events. and they've already started sponsoring events with the school. And I guess they're doing like a restaurant night once a month with the school going forward. So they're hoping to be very community involved. They realize that places like this, people are driving from New Jersey to go to a place like this. People are driving down the street. So if you want to have people come back 2 times a week, you got to give them a reason to. And again, they're focusing a lot on staffing. They realize that these sort of establishments, there may be issues on occasion, but the best thing to do is try to get ahead of it. They're creating a staff handbook that we're working on. And again, they're going to try to, when they hire in, I wouldn't say hire in bulk, but when they're hiring large groups, they're going to be doing staff training very quickly with the TIP certification as well. If the board has any questions, we'd be happy to address them at this time.
Mr. Chairman, any questions?
No, I have none.
Commissioner Duffy, any questions?
No question.
Commissioner Snoops?
No questions?
Mr. Hurdle, anything you want to add?
I always appreciate the help of the board. I know that I had a lot of questions from Mr. Aronson and Ms. Hagner on this process, and they've always been wonderful.
We think so too.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman?
Thank you, Mr. Fraley. Mr. Hurdle, before I make a motion, I was just looking at your cover sheet. There appears to be about 10 items that still need to be satisfied with the administration.
There may be a bunch. I know that there's going to be, again, challenges with the estate process. There's a more serious attorney involved in this, Mr. Charlie Sung, and he's handling the serious lawyer things. And I'm doing this. So I anticipate you and I will work together to make sure we get all those issues addressed.
Okay, thank you. Also, the drawings.
Sure, I think they were sent over. I know we got drawings.
Have we gotten a revised drawing?
I know, I haven't gotten them.
We'll make sure that you either get them or we get them further updated.
Survey.
Yeah.
The building.
Yeah, I emailed it to the gal when I picked up the notice sign. I emailed it to the gal at the front, and she said she was going to forward everything.
I'll have her forward them to me, and then I'll make sure you guys get them.
Okay.
It was like 8 items that I had emailed her, and she said, I'll make sure that it gets to where it has to go. And that was about 2 weeks ago.
Yeah.
Just as long as you understand that we can't release the license to you until you satisfied all the documents, including the drawings.
Okay.
We anticipate, especially because of the estate process, that this might be not done tomorrow.
Understood.
I'm not sure if they've got a PR yet, so it could be a little while.
Thank you. With that being said, I'd like to make a motion that we go ahead and approve the transfer. Looking for a second.
I second the motion.
Thank you, Mr. Duffy. We have a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
And aye. It's been approved.
Thank you, Commissioner. You be excused.
Thank you so much.
Very good. Yes, you are excused. Have a good day.
Be about a month ago.
He was in the office a couple months ago.
He spoke very highly of you all.
Yeah,
When we were in the process of the management agreement, he said, if you have any problems, they're great. They like me. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Deputy Chief?
The next case is Delanote.
Mr. Burns, will you waive the reading?
Yes, Mr. Fraley.
Thank you.
Anyone wishing to testify for or against, please come forward, remain standing, and raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear and affirm under the penalty of perjury that the testimony you are about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? Please be seated and state your name and address for the record.
Louis Fisher, 978 Mount Holly Drive, Annapolis, Maryland.
Darren Burns on behalf of Delanote, Mr. Fisher, and you have my address on file.
All right, Mr. Burns, we'll turn it over to you. You can present your case by way of proper testimony or a combination of both. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Braley. Mr. Chair, Commissioners, nice to see you again live in this kind of setting. You have a full file in front of you. I also want to thank staff for their help as we ramped up for this. It took a few months to get to hearing, and we needed all of that because there were some things that still need to be corrected. One thing we learned pretty late last week, I think, was that the floor plan, which we were just talking about, needs to be enhanced. So we certainly make that commitment, Mr. Chair, that we'll substitute the current floor plan you have for anything else you might need if that's what the board indicates. This is a good news story. This is a transfer case. The issue is whether or not Mr. Fisher's fit to hold a license, and I submit to you when you hear his record that he is. The River Bay Roadhouse establishment in Cape St. Clair, right along the main road there, across from the park. There's some other businesses. It's been there for more than 10 years, successful. Mr. Miller, the owner, has sold the business to new ownership, Della Notte, and they're looking and are in the process of converting from what it has been to an Italian restaurant, full service, family special events, upgrading the bar. I think some pictures may have made their way to you through the file that actually shows some of the work they've done in the kitchen with new fixtures, with the bar upgrading it, with bathroom fixtures being upgraded as well. And Mr. Miller has stayed on. He's cooperated, understanding that this can take some time for the transfer of the license. He has stayed on as the manager, and you have the management agreement. So it's been a pretty seamless transition. Mr. Fisher's a veteran of the restaurant business in this area, I think 24 years in restaurants, including over 12 years managing and supervising in restaurants, including an Annapolis establishment, Carpaccio's. In his time, in his positions in various restaurants, he has never been part of, committed any violations in the county, and he is been managing the transition, I will call it, to Della Notte. He would tell you that there's still a little more work to do to finish that process, but really getting the liquor license is going to allow them to take that next big step. The employees from River Bay Roadhouse have mostly stayed. Many of them are tips trained. The newer ones that have come in most recently, as well as the ones that Mr. Fisher will officially have on board, they have a program which they're going to get all of those folks trained who haven't already been trained. So that's in the works as well. I think with respect to whether or not Mr. Fisher's fit as a license holder, I think his experience in these kind of businesses is important. I think that he is, as one of the folks who's heavily invested in this, both with equity and sweat equity, he wants this to succeed. And certainly his investors want this to succeed, and I hope the county and the commissioners would want this to succeed, and the folks in Cape St. Clair will continue to have a successful restaurant in that location. With that, we would take any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Burns. Mr. Chairman.
I have no questions.
Commissioner Duffy, any questions?
No questions.
Commissioner Snoops, any questions?
No questions.
Mr. Burns, anything you want to add, or do you want to quit while you're ahead?
That's a deal I can't refuse, Mr. Fraley. We'll rest our case.
All right, thank you. Mr. Chairman.
Okay. With that, like I mentioned earlier, with the other cases, you do have 6 or 7 items that need to be satisfied with the administration before the license can be issued. We do have a drawing, which is very good drawing, as shows the furniture, fixtures, dimensions. Thank you for that. Okay, with that, I don't have any more questions for them. Somebody go ahead and
Absolutely.
all right. I'm going to make a motion that we do approve this, and I'm looking for a second.
I second the motion to approve the license.
Thank you, Mrs. Snoops. We have a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
There you go. All done.
Thank you all.
Thank you. Have a good day.
Take care.
Thank you.
Okay. Deputy Chief?
Next case is Fairfield Inn and Suites, BWR.
Thank you, Mr. Bittner.
Good evening. Richard Bittner on behalf of Fairfield Inn on the transfer. This is Mr. Khalid's son.
Wait.
Zaid Abdal.
Okay. Anyone wishing to testify for and against, please come forward, remain standing and raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear and affirm under the penalty of perjury that the testimony you are about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I swear.
Please be seated and state your name and address for the record.
Yeah, my name is Khalid Saeed Abdallah.
Mr. Fraley.
Okay, Mr. Bittner, we'll turn it over to you. You can present your client's case by way of proffer or testimony or combination. Turn it over.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. Good evening. This is a transfer of a BLSH hotel license for the Fairfield Inn and Suites, 1020 Andover Road. It's, in essence, if you would, a corporate reorganization. My client, the applicant, Mr. Abdullah, will be holding the license on behalf of the corporate entity, Airport Beverage LLC. It's anticipated. As part of the transfer, the prior licensee, again affiliated, they had a management company. That'll be all provided to you once we engage them, and we expect that we'll forward that information to you properly. I believe the application has been filed in proper form. I do understand there's some issues still remaining on some of the collateral licenses. The fire department was out the other day. No change in operation, no change in hours, same location of storage and service of the alcoholic beverages for the convenience of the guests of Fairfield Inn. My client and the new group coming in did have an eye-opener because, of course, the prior licensee was before the board on some paperwork violations last month. Of course, they were aware of it, we were aware of it, and I think that was very illuminating for Mr. Abdullah and his group, and they understand the importance of keeping those documents in order. I'm happy to answer any questions on his behalf, and he's happy to answer any questions directly.
Thank you, Mr. Bittner. Mr. Chairman.
Move in the application and ask the approval of the transfer.
That'll be accepted. Thank you, Mr. Bittner. Mr.
Okay,
Chairman.
no, I have no questions.
Commissioner Duffy, any questions?
No question.
Commissioner Snoops?
No questions?
Anything else you'd like to add, Mr. Bittner?
No, nothing, thank you.
All right, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. Like I mentioned before, it looks like there's quite a few documents that do have to be satisfied, of course. Yes. Everything will be pending until that's done. And also your drawings, have you submitted any changes in the drawings?
I have not.
You should have received a letter.
In the letter it says detailed site plan, not site plan.
Location and storage, I thought I had forwarded that to you a week or so ago. I'll double check the file.
Yeah.
Because I do recall the board requesting that and I have a.
Check with the furniture and fixtures, the scale and things.
Right, I don't want to take your time up, but I think we have that, and if it needs to be
Okay. Well,
amplified, we'll have it.
just simply, if you don't mind, get together with the administration and see that we get those. I have no further questions. With that being said, I'm going to go ahead and make a motion that we approve the transfer, and I'm looking for a second.
I second the motion.
Thank you, Mr. Duffy. I have a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. It's approved. Thank you very much, and you're excused.
Have a good evening, rest of your summer.
Thank you. You too. Okay.
Next
Deputy
case
Chief
is
Austin.
next case is Anchor Inn.
Wait, reading?
Thank you, Ms. Carter.
Anyone wishing to testify for or against, please come forward, remain standing, and please raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear and affirm under the penalty of perjury that the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, I do.
Please be seated. We'll start here on your right.
Keith Dressel, 7608 Water Oak Point Road, just a concerned citizen.
Mr. Dressel, did you sign into the?
I did not. I
Okay.
did not see that.
Let's get you signed up on that.
Sure.
Sir.
Great, thank you.
I'm so sorry, sir.
No, it's quite all right.
Sir, if you want to state your name and address.
Robert Coyana Jr., 3758 Spring Meadow Drive. Sorry, Robert Coyana Jr.
There you go.
Robert Coyana Jr., 3758 Spring Meadow Drive, Ellicott City, Maryland, 21042.
Good evening,
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, council staff. For the record, my name is Linda Carter, Carter Law LLC, 11720 Beltsville Drive, Suite 100, Beltsville, Maryland, 20705. And it's my pleasure to be before you tonight in conjunction with the transfer and the downgrade of the existing Class B license to a Class H license. We're doing this for a couple of different reasons, and if I could, first, if I could approach, and I gotta share this. If I could have this please moved in as applicant's exhibit number 1.
Okay, that'll be accepted, Ms. Carter.
Oops.
This is the second time I've knocked your name off tonight, okay?
Well,
I'm trying to tell you something, I promise.
That
there
happens.
goes that vote.
It happens. Thank you.
There's got to be a better way to do this. If I could do this by both proffer and testimony, depending on what the concerned citizen has to say this evening. We are asking for a downgrade of this license, in large part because Rob and his dad already have a license in Anne Arundel County, Celebrations, that you approved, I guess, last year. And now we're transferring this to their names as well. We appreciate the board's indulgence in not making Senior appear tonight. He is not feeling very well, and this would have been very hard for him to have been here. So we appreciate the board's courtesy. There are going to be absolute new changes in the operation of the business. For the last 10 years or more, Celebrations, Anchor Inn, through its relationship with the existing licensee, has operated the Anchor Inn as an event venue, predominantly for weddings, at this very beautiful location. There are going to be no changes. It's going to continue to be an event venue, predominantly for weddings, predominantly Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. Mostly in the early afternoon. There are some day weddings. There are never 2 events simultaneously, although there are sometimes 2 events on the same day, a morning/early afternoon event, and then a later afternoon event. I believe that this operation has been without any concerns expressed to this board for at least the last 10 years. And we don't anticipate that there are going to be any problems in the downgrade of the license, if you will. There were 2 citizens, and I believe they actually signed in, that were here earlier that had concerns. And we gave them an exhibit book to look at, which they returned to me, and then they left. And what I told them, and I'm going to have my client affirm this under oath, he understands that if he deviates from the representations that we've made to this board, that's an actionable offense as far as I'm concerned, and gives grounds for the board to have a show cause to have him come in to say why he did it. He also understands that if he wants to make a change in the mode of operation, and I understand from having talked with some people in the community that the concern is this is going to become a daily restaurant with loud music on the deck and that kind of thing. It's not going to happen. This is never going to be open to the public at large. It will continue to be an event venue, just like it has been for more than 10 years, almost 13 years, I think. This family has put, over the course of the years with their relationship with Mr. Smith, has put more than $1 million into this property. The pictures that you see are representative of the types of events that they have. We did provide the board with a layout, and then there's one that has dimensions. We have also provided the board with some, since it's event space, the event dictates the setup of the tables. And so we provided the board with some samples of how the setups are sometimes done. This is not all inclusive. We have other setups. If it doesn't meet your needs, we can arrange that. It sounds like an ad, right? Yeah. And then the rest of it talks about the food and the menu and the cooks. Rob understands that at all times his employees have to be alcohol awareness certified. He's never had a violation at either of your locations, actually, and not in Greenville, not in Beltsville either. They really run a tight ship, and I would ask the board if we could please hear from the concerned citizen and then maybe make more of a case if we need to.
Sure. And what I will say, Ms. Carter, the two individuals who signed up were, just for the record, William Bounds and Diana Bounds, with an address of 1302 McNabb's Lane. They didn't indicate on the sign-in sheet whether they were here in support or opposition. My understanding is they were here in opposition, but after receiving the pamphlet, they withdrew their opposition, which is why they failed to appear before the board tonight.
That's absolutely correct.
Okay, great. Well, thank you for your presentation. What we'll do then is we'll hear from Mr. Dressel. We'll see if the board has any questions, and we'll go from there, okay?
Let me start by saying that in my time, I've been in the neighborhood for about 9 months. I'm a new homeowner over there, and the Anchor Inn has been a fine neighbor. You know, I was here tonight out of concern of gossip that I'd heard within the neighborhood that they were trying to turn it into a daily restaurant, which would bring much more traffic to our very narrow street. The gentleman right here he's nodding his head. We have a street that is it's a one-way essentially, even though it has two-way traffic. At a narrow point, it's about 10 feet in width. That being said, you know, as I just said, the Anchor Inn is a fine establishment. They've been a very good neighbor in the time that I've been in the neighborhood. I was here out of concern that they were trying to turn this into a restaurant, and my concern with it would be at that point the amount of traffic that a restaurant would draw, because I'm sure it would be a popular, well-run location, and I just don't know from a safety standpoint if the neighborhood street could support safe travel up and down that road. As a wedding venue, it does fine. There's groups that bring buses in. The parking lot, you know, holds, I don't know, roughly 60 cars or so, and they're never a nuisance. My objection would have been if they were trying to pursue a restaurant-style location there, or if this change in license would give them the opportunity to make it into a restaurant with daily customer base and frequent travel up and down those roadways, which would be the safety concern for people walking their dogs, riding their bicycles, walking along that 10-foot street that we're on. But if it's simply just a change in ownership of license, and they're going to continue to operate in the capacity that they've operated for the many years they've already been there, I do not have an objection.
Okay, great. I appreciate your testimony. Ms. Carter, do you have any questions after that?
Then I would submit on the application.
Okay.
The exhibit and what we presented to the board.
Okay, great. I'm going to see if the commissioners have any questions of anybody who's sitting at the tables right now. Mr. Chairman, do you have any questions?
No, I have no questions.
Commissioner Duffy, any questions?
No questions.
Commissioner Snoops?
No questions.
All right. Ms. Carter, anything you'd like to add? Or Mr. Dressel, that goes for you also. Anything you'd like to add?
No, thank you.
Okay.
Thank you
Rule
for your
number
time.
2, shut up and sit down.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Mr. Chairman.
Okay, first of all, very nice presentation. I think it helps clarify for both the public as well as the board and administration, so thank you for that. I noticed no violations, and that's nice when we have somebody in front of us with no violations. So with that being said, I have no further questions or comments.
Sir, if I
We
may
ready?
before- So under the current application, in order for them to operate as a restaurant, they would have to approach the board again and have another hearing?
Absolutely. The representation that they've made is the status quo is going to stay the exact same. If you think that has changed, you can call the board. We can investigate. We have several different inspectors that can take a look at it. But you know, if they were going to change the operation in any way, shape, or form, they would have to come before the board.
Okay. I have no further questions. Thank you, everyone, for your time and the patience in clarifying to the community what the process was.
Mr. Chairman.
Okay, thank you. All right, I'd like to go ahead and I'm going to make a motion that we go ahead and accept the transfer and the change of class. Looking for a second.
I second the motion.
Okay, thank you. I have twin seconds. Okay, with that being said, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And aye. Consider it done. Thank you very much, and sir, thank you for your input.
Thank you so much. And I didn't knock off Mr. Duffy's name tag.
You've got another hearing.
Well, that's...
Yeah, a second chance.
You got one more.
We just put new Velcro on it tonight.
It's not Wonder Woman proof.
Okay, Deputy Chief.
Next case is First Watch.
Thank you, Mr. Eckengast.
Anyone wishing to testify for or against, please come forward, remain standing, and raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear and affirm under the penalty of perjury that the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? Please be seated. Starting on the right, please state your name and address for the record.
It's Adam Bannon, 5221 Regal Court, Frederick, Maryland, 21703.
This is Santos Upreti, 3700 Evans Trialwell, Bettsville, Maryland, 20705.
Thank you, Mr. Fraley.
All right, Mr. Eckengast, just get your name and address for the record. If you don't mind, can we hear both of these at the same time? Would you be all right with that?
I'm totally fine with
Okay.
that. Then I have one more person.
Absolutely. Let's bring them forward. Yeah, can we swear him in real quick?
Do you solemnly swear and affirm under the penalty of perjury that the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? Please be seated and state your name for the name and address for the record.
Sure. Stephon Dangerfield, 916 North Allen Street, Philadelphia, PA, 19131.
All right, and just before we get started, I just conferred with Ms. Schreckengast for the record. We're going to hear both the Class H request for 2339 Forest Drive, Annapolis 21401, in conjunction with 6620 Ritchie Highway, Glen Burnie 21061. Turn it over to you, Ms. Schreckengast. Go right ahead.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Leanne Schreckengast with Royston, Muller, McLean, and Reed here on behalf of First Watch. Yes, we are here to seek approval for 2 new licenses for these locations. The Annapolis location has been open since August of 2022, and the Glen Burnie location has been open since August of 2019, and we are now seeking to add alcohol to their offerings. First Watch is a breakfast, lunch, and brunch location that their hours of operation are from 7:30 to 2 daily. They have a very minimal alcohol sales at their restaurants. It averages 4 to 5% throughout the First Watches across the country. The Annapolis location has seating for 167 on the interior and 30 on the exterior. The patio on Annapolis is enclosed by black wrought iron and the metal fencing. Ingress and egress to the patios at both locations is only through the restaurant there, and the patios will be continuously monitored by both the wait staff and management for alcohol. Both locations have approximately 34 employees. They do have an internal alcohol awareness training program that all employees go through upon hiring, and then as far as meeting the Maryland qualifications, they undergo the Serve Safe alcohol training for the state-approved program. Their policy is to card anyone and everyone who orders alcohol, and they always have the ID checking guides on staff for any questions that might arise when they are checking IDs. The applicants in this case are Chris Tomaso, Jay Wolzak, and Brandon Razoukas. Mr. Tomaso is the CEO and president of First Watch Restaurants, Inc., and Jay Wolzak is the secretary and chief legal officer for First Watch Restaurants, Inc. They are not here this evening, and I thank the board for excusing them. This was the week of board meetings at First Watch Restaurants. So I will tell you that they all have stock ownership interests as well as being officers of First Watch, Inc. Brandon Razoukas, who is the local resident, unfortunately had to cancel the last minute. He woke up with fever and chills this morning and has them still this evening. We were playing it by ear, but he emailed me right before the hearing started to say that he was unable to make it. I don't think anybody wants germs at this point anyway. So I thank you for excusing all of them. So with that, I turn it over to the board for any questions you might have for either location.
All right, thank you, Mr. Eckengast. Mr. Chairman.
Did I hear you correct in saying, did I hear you correct when you said that nationwide they have about a 4 to 5% alcohol use?
Yep, that's their national average.
And that's what you would expect, I imagine, with these 2 as well?
Yes.
Okay. What are your most common drinks that breakfast or brunch might bring? I know what you're going to say, but go ahead.
I think we all do.
Bloody Mary and mimosas.
I just wanted to hear you say it. Yeah. Okay, thank you. I believe, and we'll do this with the rest of it. Your drawings are a little bit short of what we need and require. So your site plan, I think the one site plan actually doesn't highlight the particular space. It just shows the entire strip store or area.
There should be detailed floor plans that were to scale and had dimensions on them that I did email over after these were filed.
Yeah, they're on, where you can pull them up on the computer.
Okay, well, if you would, just get with the administration and make sure that we, because again, like everything else, we're not going to release the license unless we know exactly what we're looking at.
Completely understand.
Okay. I have outdoor dining for one, but not for the other. Is that
Should be
correct?
for
Or
both.
For
Should be
both?
for both.
Okay. Oh, okay, I do see it. I apologize. All right, I have no further questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Commissioner Duffy, any questions?
No questions.
Commissioner Snoops? Mr. Eckengast, anything you want to add?
I have nothing further.
All right, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, with that being said, I'd like to make a motion that we approve both of the locations. And as long as we satisfy what the administration needs as far as outstanding documents and plans. Looking for a second.
A second.
Thank you. With that, we have a second, so all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Very good.
Thank you all.
Thank you. Deputy Chief?
They signed in the sheet.
Your excuse? Next case is Lasong Panoy.
Thank you, Mr. Brown.
Anyone wishing to testify for or against, please come forward, remain standing, and please raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear and affirm under the penalty of perjury that the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
Please be seated, and starting on the right, please state your name and address for the record.
Peter G. Burns, B-Y-R-N-E-S Jr., on behalf, like Lasang Panoy. Sorry.
He's a lawyer, and that's why he started the honor. He's used to that, spelling his name with the court. And then, you know that, Mr.
Oh, yeah.
You know what you're required to do.
Lorquiza Nichols, 14120 Aberdeen's Folly Court, Bowie, Maryland, 20720.
Thank you, Mr. Brown.
All right, Mr. Brown.
Thank you. I was unaware you could speak Filipino, so congratulations. You've done good. Mr. Chairman, members of the board, we are here on behalf of Quiza Nichols, who owns Lasang Panoy, which is a Filipino restaurant. It is the only high-class, top-drawer Filipino restaurant in the state of Maryland, from what we understand. Everybody is talking about the place now. They've been open 5 weeks with phenomenal, absolutely phenomenal reception by the community. People are coming from all over the state to do this. And that's to credit to some degree to the Westfield Mall, because they were looking for something different. If you remember, Nando was in this space before. You know, the chicken place and all that, they were there for a period of time. No major changes to it at all, basically the same place on it. The outdoor seating is the same. We haven't increased the seating at all. We've done nothing. We've left it the way it is. The only thing they've done is put in a brand new menu. Now, the interesting thing is usually bring menus and all that type of stuff. Well, I decided not to make copies of this menu, but we do have copies if you all want to look at them. If you're interested in looking at the voluminous, for lack of a better term, menu. I'm not moving it in as an exhibit because it won't fit in your computer real well. See it there. Now, Ms. Nichols is a proprietor. She's tip certified. She's requiring all of her employees to be certified. Right now, there are 5 of them that aren't certified. The others will be. All the bartenders will be for sure and have been, and things of that nature. They're looking for a license to serve beer, wine, and liquor on Sundays also. They will be serving indoors and outdoors. The outdoors, as I said, is the exact same as it was before. I'm going to miss the seating a little bit. I can't remember if it's 106 plus 12 seats or 116. I think it's 106 on
106 dining, 8 bar.
and 8 at the bar.
And 30 outside.
And then 30 outside, okay. And they are aware that the bar, you can only serve alcohol while food. It's not, you can't sit in, it's not a bar to sit and drink at, it's a bar that when you have a meal there, you can have alcohol with it. That's about it. This is their first venture in Maryland. Ms. Nichols has experience in the restaurant business, never had a violation in her life on anything. The qualifier is well, whether it's good or bad, he's a local attorney, okay? And he's there, he's been friends with the family for a while, he's close friends with the family. He's putting his name on the line because he trusts them and he knows they'll do a good job. He will not be operating the business, he will have nothing to do with the management of the day-to-day operation of the business. Quiza, as her nickname is, Nichols, will be there on a daily basis, full-time, and that's what she will be doing. She will be followed up by her husband, who's also sitting in the audience today. He's not on the license, he's not doing anything particular, but he is here in support of his wife. I'm not sure what information you need. It meets the qualifications or criteria for a new liquor license, in my opinion, especially the uniqueness. There's nothing else like it around here. And as you can see by the menu, you don't really need to read Filipino in order to understand it, but it would be nice. By the way, what does Lasang Pinoy mean?
Taste of the Philippines.
Taste of the Philippines, okay. Now, I could have said that, but it sounds better from her. So it's a taste of the Philippines, and like I said, if you've seen the papers and anything, there's talking all over about it right now. I was in Columbia the other day, and they were asking me if the new restaurant opened yet for Filipinos, and so it's an important thing. They are aware of the liquor license rules and regulations. We've looked at the book. They've gone through things. The packets that you have were put together by Quiza, not by me, but by Quiza. She did a good job, and then when Eddie turned around and said, Ms. Aronson said, we can't read this one document, I sent it over, and then she sent a better one over right after that. So now, hopefully, it'll fit on the computer and you can read it, because these drawings are so small anymore, it's very difficult, and I'm not going to challenge myself to read them completely. So I blow them up on my computer when I look at them. That's why I had trouble with the 106 versus the 116 seating, because the 0 and the 1 look a little bit alike sometimes. I present to you someone before the board with their first venture in this area, taking over a place which was successful for a long time. They have the support of the mall, they have the support of a lot of people around here, and we meet, I believe they've completed everything and presented it. We have the workers' comp documents and things like that. We will present them as necessary. I didn't present them all, they sent a couple to me, and we will get everything in, because we're aware that we can't, if you approve this license tonight, we can't pick it up until we've crossed all the T's and dotted all the I's as necessary. So I present to you my applicants tonight. If you have any questions for them, they're prepared to answer any questions you may have, except for the attorney, who doesn't know an awful lot about what's going on with the license itself, but he is there as a qualifier. So that would be our presentation.
All right, thank you, Mr. Brown. Mr. Chairman, any questions?
I see you're requesting outdoor service, correct?
Yes. It's on the application.
Yeah. And actually, your drawings meet most of the prerequisites as far as furniture, fixtures, and things like that. I'm having a hard time reading them, and I'm having a hard time deciphering them. So I think the point that I'm trying to make is I'd like a little more clarity on the drawings. Now, it doesn't have to be this evening, but before we release the document, I just want to make sure. I'm looking for the dimensions.
But, Mr. Chairman, that's why we send them over digitally, because if you look at them digitally, you can...
Oh, we do have it.
Yes, you've got them all digitally, you've got everything.
Okay.
And therefore, it can be expanded, it can be looked at, and it has all the lines on it, has all the numbers and everything you need on it. So, but we do have them digitally because they were sent over specifically that way.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Brown, for clarifying. Actually, we're working on that. Okay, yeah, we were working on that this evening about being able to actually do that in the future.
It would be nice if you had that and you also had a screen out here, because I'll come up and we could talk about them. Huh?
We can do that now. We just learned
Back here?
We're only one of,
We can look in the big screen?
Yep.
Will it have my face up there too?
Not if we can help it.
yeah, we don't want to,
Oh, I'm sorry.
I'd have to put you on the scanner.
I'll take it, I'll be scanned. So, but we, hopefully all the digital things we've given you would cover everything and have all the
Yeah.
dimensions in it.
Yeah.
So whatever
And-
it can't
And I'm
be.
sure that beats this, so.
It does, it really does.
Okay, thank you. No further questions.
Commissioner Duffy, any questions?
No question.
Commissioner Snoops?
No questions.
All right, Mr. Brown, anything else?
You have it.
All right, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, thank you. With that being said, I'm going to make a motion that we go ahead and we approve the new license for Lasang Pinoy. Looking for a second.
I second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Congratulations.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome very much.
Have a good evening.
You too. Oops. Yeah, thank you.
You're excused.
Thank you.
Next case is Sullivan's Cove. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Carter.
Anyone wishing to testify for or against, please come forward, remain standing, and please raise your right hand.
All in favor? Gonna make this easy.
All right. Do you solemnly swear and affirm under the penalty of perjury that the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? Please be seated, and starting here on your right, give your name and address for the record.
Yes, my name is Alphonse Quinn. My address is 710.
Can you turn the microphone on, please?
Alphonse Quinn. My address is 710.
Hit the button on.
Yeah, there might be too many of them on. I can turn it off.
Can everybody hear me? Good. My name is Alphonse Quinn, and my address is 710 South Cherry Grove Avenue, Annapolis, Maryland, 21401.
My name is Brian Reno, 365 Ellenham Court, Severn Park, Maryland, 21146.
I'm George Evans. I live at 38 Crisborough Road, Severn Park, Maryland, 21146.
Matt Halpin, 8154 Wayburn Road, Millersville, Maryland, 21108.
Sean Martin, 106 Stone Step Court, Millersville, Maryland, 21108.
And good evening again, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, staff, council. For the record, my name is Linda Carter, and I'm before you now in connection with Sullivan's Cove. And with the board's permission, if I can approach, and this time I'm going to try not to knock down Mrs. Snoops. I'm just saying way back this time. Mr. Chairman.
Thanks, Linda.
This is almost deja vu because this board actually approved this license originally back probably in 2019, and my poor client had the misfortune of opening in January of 2020. And we all know what happened in March. And fast forward, he ran a very successful operation. His customer counts were 1,200 to 1,500 a week. And then unfortunately during renewals, there was an issue and the license did not get renewed. So we're back before you asking that the board please reissue a license that was previously issued and was not taken away because of something that the client did, but there was a amount, on our end, the renewal did not get processed properly, and accordingly we're here tonight. No changes in the operation. This will continue to be the same kind of restaurant that it was previously. It's actually operated as a restaurant without a license, but not very successfully and not financially profitable. If I were to ask my client how many customers come in and then walk out, he would say it happens on a daily basis. And I can tell you that's actually how I picked up this client, because I had had a really bad day at work. My husband and I went to Sullivan's Cove because we knew we could get good dinner. I wanted a drink. Guess what? I left my card with the hostess. Said, you know, any other night I would stay, not tonight. And a couple of days later, he called me, and we're all here before you tonight. We would proffer that the exhibits contain, and the tabs that we're going to ask be marked and accepted as applicant's exhibit number 1 or 2 and correct. The pictures are, I will be honest, are a little bit outdated, because these pictures show the bar when it had alcoholic beverages. There is no alcohol on the bar now, absolutely none. The menu is in effect. This menu is operational 7 days a week from opening till closing. He has had to scale back the number of employees from over 50 to down to about 35. If this license approves if this board approves the license, that employee count will go back up. He takes alcohol awareness very seriously. All of his managers will be certified if they're not already. All bartenders will be certified if they're not already. And he understands that at all hours that he's operating, he has to have at least one person on the premises that's alcohol awareness certified. But in the years that he operated this, there were no violations. And he has a lot of experience in restaurants here in Anne Arundel County, including working at Chartwell, and he has never been involved in an incident that gave rise to a violation before this board. So he understands the privilege and the responsibility of being able to serve alcohol. And unfortunately, not being able to serve alcohol has, it's been an unfortunate experience, but it's been a very good learning experience, because both he and his staff understand the importance of doing things by the book, dotting all the I's and crossing all the T's. We have with us tonight 4 individuals who have taken time out of their day to come before you. I believe 2 are actually employees, but 2 are just customers. And if I were to ask them why they're here, they would say they're here fully in support of the board granting the alcoholic beverage license. We've, at tab 5 in the exhibit book, there is a petition that supports the request for the license with all of the incumbent privileges, including dance, and I do want to explain that. And I believe there's either 190 or 200 signatures. The dance component, there's no intent to have public dancing, but once or twice a month, the gay pride community has a drag queen parade, if you will, and we understand that that needs to have, the kind of entertainment that's offered requires a dance permit. So we are asking for that.
Okay.
I can keep going if you want, or I can shut up and sit down.
Ms. Carter, we will accept this as applicants 1 for the record, and thank you for providing it. Turn it over to the chairman to see if he has any questions, and then we'll see if the commissioners have any questions. Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Praley. I do have a few questions. So now I know why we went from a B, your previous license, Mr. Martin, was a B license with the entertainment and Sundays, and now you're requesting dancing with a B and Sundays. But you have no intentions of having a dance floor or a platform or anything like that?
No intent.
All right. And if I understand correctly, there's a couple times a month you're going to entertain a group or groups of people for...
I'd like to clarify.
Okay, I'm sorry.
That's a misunderstanding.
I would appreciate that, yeah.
In the past, we have hosted every 2 or 3 months a drag queen show for brunch. It is a 2 to 3 hour ticketed event. It is my 16-year-old daughter has attended it. It is it's an entertainment. That's all it is. And we strongly believe, and I speak on behalf of my staff and my customers, that we are all-inclusive and always will be. And we were approached by a gentleman that owns this company They perform all over the state, and their most successful days, meaning their income by tips, was coming in and performing at Sullivan's Cove. And they are very, very interested in coming back. Unfortunately, I did speak with Marcus, the owner. He has a nighttime business of cutting hair and was not able to attend. He asked if some of his staff would be welcomed in their uniforms, and I didn't think that was appropriate. But we've hosted this event many times in the past. It was always a clean family type entertainment, and unfortunately the last time we were scheduled to host, our previous inspector came in a week beforehand and asked us to move it to a different location.
And Mr. Chairman, I should add, because I think this is really relevant to the fact that this is a restaurant, their food to alcohol ratio is somewhere between 80 and 85% food versus 15 to 20% alcohol. And if you look at the menu, there's a children's menu, and there are, and I can attest to this, there are high chairs and booster seats. So it truly is a family restaurant.
Our chef is here.
No, our chef's here.
Our chef is here as well. Alphonse is main chef.
Hungry.
Okay, I have a question, Mr. Martin.
Yes, sir.
Your alcohol awareness training, is that up to date?
Well, we have several members that do have it, and we have several members that think they have it. By that, I mean that when you and I had chatted earlier in the year, actually last year, we had, I believe, 6 members take the class through the health department and through efforts of people on your staff as well as you personally. We have tried many times to obtain those documents and have been unable to get them from the health department. To this day, I still don't have them. But I have other members of the staff that do have it.
And Mr. Chairman, there's a quick fix for this. My office manager is a certified TIPS instructor. Now, TIPS has recently, and you may have heard this, have had a problem with printing the test for the test itself, the actual form that the Scantron reads. We have been told that it has been resolved. We're expecting books to come in next week, and we will arrange with Mr. Martin to make sure that he's got a sufficient number of people that are certified, because he understands how important it is. And I think the chair was asking about you personally.
Mine is expired. I'm waiting to take the test. With some members of my staff, we have every intention on redoing it.
January 24th, 2023.
Yes, sir.
Was the expiration date. You're the only licensee. Correct? And you don't have an active alcohol awareness training, as we just discussed.
Correct.
I believe that is a requirement that a licensee, at least one licensee, be alcohol awareness trained. I'd like to question Mr. Praley on that, if I may.
So I'd point Ms. Carter to our Rule 2.17, which indicates a holder of any class of retail alcoholic beverage license, with the exception of a temporary license, or an employee designated by the holder shall complete training approved in an approved alcohol awareness program. I do think that if there are a sufficient number of employees that are designated, that may be sufficient, but we would request that Mr. Martin update
We will
his
gladly
and
make
get
sure
that
that
done
takes
as
care.
soon as
That's
possible,
easy.
since he is the only licensee there.
That's easy.
Good. Then
Yeah.
that satisfies that question. All right.
I work with you guys,
We've-
you know?
well,
we try.
Mr. Martin and I have talked about this before, and I was told by him that he took the class. Then I found out he didn't, but it might have been a misunderstanding on one of our
Well,
parts.
he will. I will make sure that he takes the class, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. I guess I'm going back to how this occurred, but more importantly, I'm kind of curious. I rode by, and I have a photo of a sign that was put on your establishment. And I can read it to you, and if you wish, I can show you a
We're
picture.
familiar with them, or I'm familiar with them, Mr. Chairman, and
Well,
once I
you know
became
where I'm going
involved,
with this.
Yes, they're no longer, in my client's defense, he was afraid he was going to lose his business. He still owes a lot of money, $800,000? There's a note for $800,000 on which he's still liable. He was very concerned that he was going to lose his staff, even if he didn't lose his business. And you all know what the employment market is like now. Finding good employees in this industry is very difficult. And he was afraid he was going to lose everything. So and I've admonished him. He understands that I believe he did not act as appropriately as he should have. That's one of the reasons why I'm here, and I'm doing most of the talking, because we've had this discussion. The bottom line is, regardless of why we're here, the question is, the fact of the matter is, we are here. And, until this incident, I think Mr. Martin had been a good licensee. I live in Millersville. Sullivan's Cove has a great reputation in our community. If you look at the petition, lots of people from Millersville, lots of people from Severna Park. It really is a place where locals go to eat. It's one of, it's a standard bearer. And we don't want to lose, as a resident of the area, I don't want to lose another restaurant that I feel good taking my grandchildren to. And so, on behalf of Mr. Martin, I will apologize for the signage that went up in the store, and I'm sure you're familiar with some of the Facebook posts that were there as well. And, had I been involved from the beginning, it would not have happened, and he knows better than to do this going forward.
Thank you, and we appreciate the apology. Along with that, I can attest to the fact that this board, meaning the administration portion, had tried to work with Mr. Martin day after day after day prior to the end of the renewal period, all the way up to the last day. And I've had conversations with Mr. Martin trying to help. And I think a lot of what we heard was blame being tossed around to different departments in the county. And then when I saw this sign saying that the Anne Arundel County Liquor Board had stiffed us, I was not a bit happy with that, but I'm not taking it on a personal level. I'm taking it on the fact that I know this board really did try to help Mr. Martin out.
And I will tell you, statewide, my office handled more than 190 renewals. I don't know how many were in Anne Arundel County, but I will tell you, your staff, especially the two that are sitting here, because they're the two that I bombard with the most number of questions most frequently, are amazing. Okay, they are. I will put them up against any staff, and you can put me under oath, I'll put them up against any staff people anywhere in the state. They're extraordinary. And I wasn't involved. I don't know what happened. I know that, the online stuff, I'm sorry, I'm not a techie. I'm not good with this stuff. When I get into a Zoom, I log in 30 minutes in advance because I'm so afraid it's not going to work. So, I get it that it's frustrating. Then I'll be honest, I wish my client had been a little bit more circumspect in his disappointment with the process. But I think, quite frankly, Mr. Chairman, the fact that he has been without a license since May 1st is a huge punishment for his indiscretions.
Through no fault of the liquor board.
Yeah, I'm not going to, you did not hear me say that you guys were culpable in this,
All right,
okay?
I think enough said there, but I really felt that it needed to be brought out. It needed to be brought out at a public hearing. So with that, I'm going to make a motion. And I'm going to make a motion that we grant you your license as requested. But, well, let me just leave it at that. I'm looking for a second.
I'll second the motion.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, it's granted.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
And we're going to handle his renewal this year. Or next year.
Okay, thank you. That is the end, correct?
That's it.
Okay. All right, the August 8th, 2023 Liquor Board hearing is now adjourned. Thank you all. Have a good evening.
By the way, this cake is good.
Oh, that's killer, isn't it?
Your cheesecake is very good.